Hello everybody and welcome to Mark Goldbridge, That's Football. Who are the best players at each Premier League club in the season 2020-21? Yes, I think I got that right. But this is exciting. We are on the cusp of a new season. I did my Premier League predictions last week, and this week we're going to go through each Premier League club and I'm going to give my best player for each club. So it's very interactive. You can get involved in the comments. You can predict what I'm going to say and then see what I'm going to say, and in your head you can be thinking he's going to say this, I would say that, and then that's where the interactivity and excitement comes from. Of course we'll be talking about Manchester United's best player, who I think Liverpool's best player is, Manchester City and all that jazz, but as is sensible and also chronological, we're going to start off with A to Z. There is no Z. Wolves is last, Arsenal is first. So let's get into it. Who is Arsenal's best player? Well, I think this is a nice, easy one to start off with. It easily is David Luiz. I mean, no, it's not really. It's Aubameyang. Of course, it's Aubameyang. I think Arsenal, in Aubameyang, they've got one of the best players in Europe. In Aubameyang, they've definitely got one of the best players in the league. And in Aubameyang, he is comfortably Arsenal's best player. I think you take Aubameyang out of Arsenal last year and they finished lower than 8th, which was bad enough. They would probably have been mid-table or worse. So he's a fantastic player. He's definitely their best player, and I'm surprised that the new contract's not been announced yet, but definitely Aubameyang. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with me on that one. There is no Bournemouth anymore. You're gone, and most of your best players are gone. But the next team, alphabetically, not chronologically, I've got that wrong, Aston Villa. And again, quite an easy one. It's a nice easy start here. Man United's going to be interesting, as is Liverpool. But Aston Villa, Jack Grealish. He's still there. I didn't think he would be, but he is. Jack Grealish is still at Aston Villa, and he is comfortably their best player. I mean, look, I can't think of anyone else at Aston Villa, much like I couldn't think of anyone else at Arsenal to challenge Aubameyang. Jack Grealish, very easy. Don't need to go into whys. He's a very good player. Got a lot of goals. They nearly got relegated. He kept them up. He is easily their next player. Now, the next team is Brighton. Now, this is a little bit, you've got to think out the box. I don't want to dwell on it, but for me, Brighton, I'd love to cut to, more pace, won it at the end. In fact, I almost feel that I've missed a trick there. I don't think I've even got it. But look, I do think that Lewis Dunk is a fantastic player for them. You know what I'm trying to find. I do think Lewis Dunk's a fantastic player, but more pace, won it at the end. I knew it. More pace, won it at the end. More pace, won it at the end. Well, he's not won it at the end because I'm going to go Lewis Dunk. Captain, they're very good defensively. I'm surprised he didn't get a move. I almost felt that Chelsea might go for him, but I'm going to go Lewis Dunk for Brighton. Burnley are next. Now, some people will be talking about Wood and other players, but for me, this is my choice, so I'm going to go with it, and I'm sure Burnley fans don't like me anyway. Bloody Burnley, not bothered. But to me, I'm going to pick who I think is each Premier League club's best player. So it's a personal thing, and you can think whatever you like. I'm going to go Dwight McNeil. If I wanted to take one player, and it's not just best player, most valuable player can be a factor. The player that you take for your club, I think that's the very important thing here. If you don't support any of these clubs, and what player would you take at your club? Well, yeah, Aubameyang, yeah, Grealish. Lewis Dunk, yeah, probably from Brighton, and definitely Dwight McNeil from Burnley. I rate him. I think he's a really good winger, formerly of United actually, but I think he's a fantastic player. So it's Dwight McNeil for me. Chelsea's interesting actually. Who is Chelsea's best player going into the season? Because I think you've got to put the new players in there. You can't just say, oh no, we're not going to put the new players in there. They're Chelsea players going into this season. And again, I think there's a value in reflecting on this at the end of the season about who I think is their best player, because you know what, we might watch this back at the end of the season and go, he said Aubameyang, he only scored 1 goal. So for me, Chelsea, the candidates are Kovacic. I'm a big fan of Kovacic. I think he's massively underrated. Pulisic, fantastic player. I still think Kante is important, but I don't know how important he is in Lampard's eyes. That's just me looking outside it as a non-Chelsea fan. But I'm going to say Havertz. I'm going to sort of make a predict. I think if you know anything about Havertz, the quality of this player, and I know they've got Werner, and I know they've got Ziyech, and I know they've got Pulisic and Kovacic and all those players I've already mentioned. But I think in Havertz, if you know anything about Havertz, he is like the star. He is the player that everyone's meant to go, wow, he is their next Eden Hazard. Not in position, but in influence. So I'm going to go with Havertz. Of course he could flop, but I'm going to go Havertz. I'm only looking down so I get it alphabetically correct, because I know the clubs, but I don't know them alphabetically. Crystal Palace, quite easy. Don't think anyone's going to argue with this one. Definitely Gary Cahill. We move on to Everton. No, Wilfried Zaha. If he's still going to be there, there's still a big if there, but if he is, still Wilfried Zaha. Clearly Crystal Palace's best player. Clearly should be playing at a higher level. Everton, interesting Everton. I've got 3 candidates here, and I will make a choice. First one is Richarlison. I think he's their best. I think he is their best player, talent-wise, attacking-wise. They've also brought in James Rodriguez, who I think is their star player, but we don't know whether he's going to be consistent. And out of the box, I think Andre Gomez is very influential for Everton. And a lot of people have said, well, they've bought Doucouré, they've bought Alan, they've bought James Rodriguez. I think Andre Gomez is massively important for Everton, and I think Ancelotti knows it. So I'm going to go Richarlison, though. I think he is the most valuable player, and he's the player I would take from Everton. So I'm going to go with him. Fulham, newly promoted club, first of the newly promoted clubs. Don't know loads about these teams, but what I do know is that if I was taking a player from Fulham, and especially as a United fan, and I think a Spurs fan would agree, Mitrovic. I don't think Fulham are blessed with loads of good players. But and I do think they'll get relegated, as I predicted last week. But I think Mitrovic was the top scorer in the Championship. I think he's a Premier League striker. I think he's a very good striker. And for me, he is Fulham's best player, and the player I would take from Fulham as well. Alphabetically, next we've got Leicester. Leicester City's best player. There's 3 candidates: Sionku, Ndidi, and Vardy for me. And I'm going to go with... Well, look, when Ndidi got injured at the start of the year, Leicester dropped off. Leicester between September and Christmas were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They were almost in a title race, and then they fell off badly. Ndidi got injured, but I think... And Sionku's very important to them, but I think you've still got to put respect on the name of Jamie Vardy, because... won the goal. He was top scorer, wasn't he, last year as well? I'm pretty sure that was right. Jamie Vardy. I think yeah. But I wouldn't. Interestingly, I'll give it to Jamie Vardy, but he isn't the player I would take from Leicester if I was wanting to take their best player. I probably would take Ndidi, but I think Vardy is their best player because they don't get a lot of goals from anywhere else. So Vardy's absolutely crucial to Leicester. Next team is alphabetically Leeds. Leeds. There's just something about saying Leeds. Okay, Leeds. I don't actually know a lot about Leeds. It's a combination of things, really. Being a United fan, I don't really take much pleasure watching Leeds. So I haven't really taken much notice of them. But in my opinion, from the limited amount of times I've seen Leeds and what I've heard about Leeds and what I've seen of this player, I like Calvin Phillips. I think he's I know he played for England this week. I thought he did as a holding midfielder, that's what he's there to do. In a very boring England performance, I think he did quite well. And I would say Calvin Phillips is Leeds' best player. Correct me if I'm wrong. Liverpool next. Now we get into the controversial ones now, because we're going to do Liverpool, Man City, Man United. So Liverpool's best player to me, again, there's 3 candidates. You've got Mane, Salah, Van Dijk. And I think you could go either of those, but I'm going to narrow it down to 2. I'm going to go Mane or Van Dijk, and then I'm going to think, which player would I want at United? I wouldn't want any because they're Liverpool players, but taking that away, and which is their most valuable player. And it's very close, and I think it is controversial, because either way it's controversial, but I'm going to go with Van Dijk. He would be the player I'd take at United, because we need a centre-back, and I think he's the best centre-back in the world. I don't think Mane's the best in his position in the world, but I still think he's massively valuable to Liverpool. I can barely split them, but I'm going to go Van Dijk on that one. Manchester City next. Quite easy, actually. I don't think there's any controversy with this. I mean, I can't think of I don't even need to narrow it down. I don't think anybody gets anywhere near. I think Aguero, in some ways, gets a bit close, but Aguero seems to get injured every season now. De Bruyne. I mean, De Bruyne to me is the best attacking midfielder in the world. And he's clearly Man City's best player, and he's clearly Man City's most valuable player. So De Bruyne could have been Messi, but you're not getting him. So we move on to Manchester United, my club. So who is the most valuable player at Manchester? Who is Manchester United's best player? Sorry, I don't think it's their most valuable player because I think value can be, Mane be more valuable than Van Dijk, I would say, but maybe not actually. But although they are about the same age, Van Dijk's just a one-off though, isn't he? Because he's the best in the world. But for me, at Manchester United, this is very easy. I'm just wondering what United fans watching this are going to think about how easy I found it. Because to me, it's Luke Shaw. That was proven at the end of the season when we didn't have Luke Shaw and we didn't win the Europa League. So it's easily... No, I'm only joking. I do like Luke Shaw, but it's not Luke Shaw. It's Bruno Fernandes. And I say that with absolutely no guilt, no controversy. I think rival fans will find this harder to swallow than United fans because Paul Pogba is very important to United, but he's been here for 3 years and we've seen with Pogba inconsistency. We've seen with Pogba that, yes, on his day he can be world class, but a lot of the time he's not. What we saw with Bruno is he came into a midfield that didn't have Pogba in it and, a team that was struggling when he came in and basically took hold of it and revitalised it and delivered. And that to me is why Bruno Fernandes is our best player because he's consistent. He is consistent and we have struggled with that. And I think, maybe Jadon Sancho will come in and do that. Maybe Paul Pogba will do that in a better team. Maybe Martial's going to be Mr. Consistent now. Maybe Rashford will get back to his best. But as of now, Bruno Fernandes is our best player in my opinion. Next, we've got Newcastle. Next. Yeah, I'm quite comfortable. Newcastle. What have we got? Newcastle. Okay. So Newcastle for me, I'm terrible with names. Alan St Maximin, loads of tricks, exciting, fast, direct, flair player. And I think Newcastle are lucky to have a player like that. Sometimes these clubs, when you're a United fan or a Liverpool fan or a top six fan, you look at Newcastle and you go, there's not a lot there I like. But I think in St Maximin they've got a really exciting player there, so I'd say he's their best player. Sheffield United, I think alphabetically are next. They are actually. I just want to make sure. Well, it's West Brom, isn't it? That's what I'm thinking about. Sheffield United sometimes get mixed up with Southampton when you're doing kits. That's on me. If you saw that video, Sanderberg. Bit of controversy here. Sanderberg. Dean Henderson was their best player last year. He's not there this year. He's back at Manchester United. I think you could say Basham, the captain. It's hard to pick a Sheffield United player when Sheffield United's success is based on a sum of their parts. They're not about individuals. But I know he's only been there a short period of time, but he's been there the same time as Bruno at United. And whenever I've seen Sheffield United with Sanderberg in the team, I think he's fantastic. And I think he will leave to go to a top 6 Premier League club at some point in the next year. So I would say Sanderberg. Next up, you've got Southampton. Again, quite easy. I'm a big fan of Ward-Prowse, but it's Danny Ings. If you score 20 goals in the Premier League in a Southampton side, then you deserve the credit. And whether I'd want him at United or what, that's by the by. I think he's done a fantastic job there. So it's got to be Danny Ings, best player at Southampton. So alphabetical. Tottenham, again, quite easy. Very good players at Tottenham. I personally, in fact, it wasn't very easy because I wanted to say Son. I did want to say Son, but the best player is Harry Kane. And I think Son's fantastic, but Spurs without Harry Kane are a different game. They are. And whether you've watched All or Nothing or not, Spurs without Harry Kane is a different side. And we're talking about Spurs' best player. Not my favourite player, we're talking about Spurs' best player. And I think Harry Kane is Spurs' best player, but my favourite Spurs player is Son. West Brom come in now. I mean, look, not a lot of people are going to know a lot about West Brom. It's not too far away from me, and I know a few. And they're not a club from London, by the way. They're from Birmingham, well, they're not. They're actually from West Bromwich Albion. They're not. The place is not called West Bromwich Albion. It's called West Bromwich. Wolverhampton's called Wolverhampton, not Wolverhampton Wanderers, but it is around the Birmingham area. So I do know a couple of West Brom fans, and I don't know a lot about West Brom. I'd have no interest in watching West Brom. Mateus Pereira is their best player. Flair player, got loads of assists last year. Might be a player to keep an eye on for your fantasy Premier League actually, but I've been told Mateus Pereira is their best player. So there you go. And that's total ignorance from me. I don't know much about West Brom. West Ham, Two choices for West Ham. One a little bit out there, one a little bit more obvious. Fabianski. They massively missed him when he got injured at the start of the season. And look, I don't think West Ham have got lots of options. So people are probably laughing saying an ex-Arsenal goalkeeper is West Ham's best player. But I think a more logical one is probably Declan Rice. He's definitely their most valuable player at the moment. I think the evolution of Rice, especially in the last 6 months of the season, has been really, really important. And I think he probably is their best player. So I would say Declan Rice. But if you wanted to go, I would put respect onto Fabianski's name. And then that leaves us with Wolverhampton Wanderers, or Wolves. And a lot of people would say Jimenez. Some people would say Ruben Neves. Some people might even say Moutinho, Connor Cody, Johnny, people like that. But I am a big fan of Adama Traore. I think he has some ridiculous stat that favour him across Europe in relation to assists from crosses, beating players one-on-one. So to me, I think that, Jimenez is a very good striker, but when you've got a player that he is topping, is getting loads of assists from crosses and can get past his man, to me it's Adama Traore. And I think he is another player that realistically could go to, and I'm not joking here, I think Adama Traore could go to a Real Madrid. And look, this is not Real Madrid with Ronaldo in it. This is a different Real Madrid now. But I think he could go to a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a PSG and actually, probably not start, but, I think Adama Traore is better than Wolves. He's an interesting one. I think United fans even considered him, but obviously we want Sancho. So to me, he's their best player. And there you have it. We've been through the whole of the Premier League there, all the best players. So make sure you get in the comments because it's for you to play the game as well. How many of mine do you agree with? How many would you change? Every Premier League club for this season's best player. We've been through it. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Get in the comments. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll speak to you all soon.